So this is my collection of light meters, built up over many years, mostly off eBay. One thing about collecting these is they're not very expensive and quite plentiful, so it's not too difficult to amass a collection. And I'll just show you. I've stopped collecting now because all the drawers are full up in all different types. It's like any interest, it grows the more you do it, and you find out how difficult it was to do photography years ago. But it's quite an enjoyable hobby and doesn't take up too much room. Right, this is some of the very first light meters from 1890s to 1910, and these all use a strip of sensitive paper that you watch the paper darken and count how long that takes, and then use that to calculate your exposure. So on this one you just pull out this tab here to expose a new piece of sensitive paper and count how long that is till it darkens. And on this one is the paper there, and then you use these calculating tables to find your exposure. This is a very popular one, the Watkins B meter, and there's your paper that darkens, and then you use these scales to set the camera. And these were in use up until the 1930s, when they invented photoelectric cells. So this is the start of some light measurement. The next step in finding your exposure could be with a calculator. It doesn't measure the light, but it's got tables where someone has planned out the different lighting for different times of year and different conditions. This was one of the first in 1890. That's round the wrong way. This was one of the first made by Herter and Jeffield, who did the first investigations into what lighting there was for photography. And you rotate this for the month and day and the time of day, and then use these sliders to find your exposure. These are quite rare. This is one that I made. Another popular one was just calculating this was an Ilford meter that was very popular and came in different versions. You started with choosing a number from the date table and setting that against the film you were using and making adjustments here. A bit long-winded really. This was an amusing one where you move these sliders to different conditions and dates, and then you'd end up with an exposure. This one's in French. A bit complicated. A simpler one developed years afterwards. You started off with your conditions, clear sun, hazy sun, and you just dial in the different settings like that, and then you'd end up with a reading here. And another type of slide rule. There's lots of these. Alright, this is the next step. These are called extinction meters, where you look through an eyepiece there, and you would see different levels of light shining through a numbered disc, which you could change here, and that will give you an idea of how bright the light was. So there are all different styles of that. So you look through, you'd see a number, and then you would put the number on this dial here, and that would give you your exposure along here. There's several different types of those, and I'm just sort of giving you a quick overview of the variety that there is. Some are quite simple, and some are more tricky to use. This is a very old one. You put this on the back of a plate camera and then turn the dial till you can see the least obvious setting, and then read it off this scale here. These are some of the smallest ones. You can see the different densities there. So these were in use, well, probably up until the 1950s. Right, this is one of the first actual light meters that measures the light with a photocell on the back. These came out in around 1934, and this is early Western, and they made lots of light meters from that time, and you would see the needle go up to, on the scale, the brighter it was, and then transfer that number onto this dial here and get your reading from that. So here's a little collection of different ones here, and some have got a large photocell and some are quite small. I'll bring these over. These are all Western meters, going from the 1930s up to the 1960s, and they were very popular. There's lots of these around still. There's a Western Master 5, and you've got the photocell there, and that's for dim light, and then for bright light you put that disc over and you take a reading there. if I open that, you can just see the needle moves with the amount of light. So that's the beginning. That's just a little quick oversight